Awesome. All right. Well, hello and welcome everyone to today's Fairy God Boss Live webinar. We're so excited to have y'all joining us today. We're going to go ahead and give folks just a few seconds here to connect. But while we're waiting, it looks like some of you are doing this in the chat already, but we'd love to know where everyone's tuning in from today. So you'll see on the right side of the screen that there's a chat box. So if you feel comfortable doing so, please send us a message in the chat just saying hi and let us know where you're joining in from. Definitely looks like we've got some folks from all over. I see Denver, New York, New Jersey, Raleigh, Austin, Texas. Oh, another Denver there, Florida. Awesome. We're pretty far spread throughout the nation here. Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Jordy Medina. I am the Community Engagement Specialist and work over on our inclusion team at Sunrun. And before we really dive in and get started, I had just a quick some announcements. This session will be recorded and shared via email with all registrants. During this discussion, we would love to hear from you. So we hope that you'll use the stage chat on the right of the screen, which some of y'all are doing now, to say hi, to leave any messages, comments, questions to the panelists and to one another. And for those who do not know, Fairy God Boss is the largest online career community for women. So millions of women visit Fairy God Boss to connect for career opportunities, jobs, community advice, and hard to find intel about how companies treat women and virtual events just like this. So now I'm excited to kick off today's event, which is Climbing the Career Ladder. Looks different for everyone. Women share their stories, sponsored by Sunrun. And I'm thrilled to be joined today by two of my colleagues, Emily Inneman and Lai Pancom. We would like to go ahead and take just a minute to introduce both of them, please. We'd love to hear what's going on in your life personally, professionally, and what you do in your role today at Sunrun. So Emily, we'll go ahead and kick it off with you.
Hi, thanks so much for having us to the Fairy God Boss and Jordy for hosting this. My name's Emily Inneman, and this is actually perfect timing for this panel because I just changed roles at Sunrun. I was a senior director of supply chain, and I just changed this week to a director of product management and revenue. And the new role is really enabling and scaling the next generation of products at Sunrun and focused on taking a customer first approach in what we do. Personally, me and my husband are residing in both a little bit of New York and California, and love to play racket sports like tennis and pickleball, and I love to be outside. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Just very excited about this panel. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that new role, Emily. Thank you so much for introducing yourself today. Lai, you have the floor.
Hi, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon. I think to some folks, really feel honored to be asked to be on this panel with everyone. And my name is Lai. I am the Director of Ops Efficiency for Sunrun, and I reside in LA. Moved here, it's going to be a year in July, actually, in a couple of weeks, on the 29th. Originally from the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. Moved here. I originally moved here for a different role as a director of electrification operations for the greater LA market. So moved here for that role, which I oversaw a few branches within the greater LA from the install side. However, I transitioned into my role now. I also serve as a chief of staff for the install operations organization. Really excited and really happy to be in this role. I think it's, I kind of, myself and my team, we really focus on strategy and, optimization on efficiency for the business. And on the weekends, you will find me at the downtown LA flower market, one of my favorite places to be. I love flowers, so I often buy flowers to decorate my home. And also I'm a foodie. I love food, and LA has a really great culinary place to be. And I travel for food. I go to San Diego, I go to OC a lot. And Southern California is known for food, so definitely a lucky place to be. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that introduction, Lai. Looking forward to hearing some of your thoughts on questions today. I myself am a foodie and will travel for food as well too. So I appreciate you there too. Perfect. So thank you all. I'm very excited about our discussion today. And for those who are just tuning in, I would just like to remind everyone that we will be answering questions later on that come directly from all of you. So please feel free to submit your questions on the chat of the right of your screen, and we'll do our best to respond to as many as we can. So we're going to go ahead and kick it off with question number 1. And there is 2 parts to this question. Now, part 1, where did you start your career journey and what are your previous roles and experiences? Part 2 of that, what motivated you to make a career change and pivot to your current role? And we'll go ahead and start with Lai on this one and then following with Emily's response.
Yeah, so my career after college, I started off in finance for a tech company in the Bay Area. I worked there for about 10 years, right? Totally different from finance to solar, really, really different for sure. And while I enjoyed my work at the tech company, I just I felt unfulfilled. And I knew that at some point in my life that I wanted to do something different. I just didn't know what it was at that time. It wasn't until like a life-altering event happened in my personal life that really made me reevaluate my career and my overall life. Right. Long story short, that shifted, landed me at Sunrun, and here I am today. And I've been with Sunrun since 2016.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely quite the direction change there over here to solar, but
Yeah.
happy to have you. And thank you for sharing. Emily, if you'd like to go ahead and follow up with your answer.
Yeah. So I started my career in HR out of college. I was a HR generalist, and then I moved up into HR business partner. And then I got a job at Sunrun, actually, in human resources after being out of college for a number of years. And then I moved into some different operations and strategy roles, worked on like a corporate strategy team within Sunrun. And, I was always holding support roles and strategy roles and kind of managing the business from the side. And so I really wanted to own a part of the business. I was always helping business leaders run their business. I was like, okay, I want to be a business leader. So kind of just threw my name in the hat for a supply chain, business leader director role and got the job. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 2.5 years up until this change to revenue and product management. And this change was kind of, I feel like I got experience in operations. I feel like I really solved a really hard problem in supply chain. And I was looking for now, sales, revenue, and product experience to kind of round out my whole experience. And so, yeah, that's I also, started networking and threw my name in the hat. And that's kind of how I landed here, and looking forward to, sharing more about that throughout the panel.
Awesome. Perfect. And you know what? That actually does kind of brush on our next question as well, too. So I'm glad you kind of talked a little bit about your pivot journey there, Emily. Now we'll go ahead and start off again with this question with Lai. How did you make this switch and how did your company support you in this progress? Was there cultural help, manager support, mentors, programs, etc.? Anything that kind of helped you along the way?
Yeah. So once I started at Sunrun in 2016, again, just coming from a completely different background, I knew very little about operations and solar, right? So, but I was eager to learn. And so I pretty much opened myself up to learn and intake all that I could about the solar industry from, my coworkers and my colleagues. I asked a lot of questions, right? Like, I think sometimes we all fear, like, if I ask too many questions, I may look or sound dumb, for lack of a better word, but that's really not the case, right? Like, that's how you learn, is by asking questions. I volunteered for different projects that would come our way. and offered to support operations in any way that I could. I connected with, leaders in other parts of the business just to gain knowledge outside of ops as well, and built that relationship with people, right? I had great mentors. One of the best things I've learned is like how to work and communicate respectively and cohesively with different parts of the business, in times where like I may not entirely agree, right, on a certain matter. I think as a leader, it's one of the top things you need to be good at, right, is how to maneuver in a space where you don't quite agree with what the other leader is trying to do or like suggest. But I think, again, like as a leader, it wasn't always as easy for me, right? And that came with coaching from my mentors. Like, hey, like I can sometimes be very direct and blunt, right? But you can be that, but there's a way for you to do it where it's, where it doesn't come off to where you're being bossy, right? But more, well, let's work together cohesively. I hear you out, but let's, I may not agree, but I think we can figure out a path. So yeah, great mentors, and one of the mentors I still have right now is Courtney Gooch, right? Like she's one of my mentors, and she's very knowledgeable within Sunrun and in strategy. So she's one of my my current, and I think she'll always be my mentor. So thanks to her.
Awesome. I love that. I think you made a lot of really excellent points as far as, volunteering for different opportunities that maybe aren't presented to you right away to grow further. And having that ability to network and have a mentor is so important. So yes, shout out to Courtney Gooch. She's amazing. But thank you for sharing that with us, Lai. And Emily, if you wanted to go ahead and take your perspective on this.
Yeah. I've always just taken the opportunity to just have an open dialogue with my managers about what I'm interested in, what my strengths are, what problems I'm interested in solving. And sometimes I'll also come to the table with some ideas that don't even pertain necessarily to our department, but to the greater good of Sunrun. And I've been really lucky to have some really awesome managers and leaders at Sunrun that really truly care about my development and truly care about, oh, you would be great at this job, even though it's not necessarily in my org. And then helping talk to those leaders and saying, hey, Emily would be great at this. And so, really grateful for the leadership and management at Sunrun that really supports career development and, sharing of resources and giving people that may not have that direct experience a shot and a chance. When I applied for the supply chain role, I didn't have any supply chain experience. I had operations experience. But it turns out kind of that's what they were looking for, someone more with operations experience, and I could lean on some, SMEs from the supply chain side of the business. So also just not being afraid that if I don't necessarily have the exact years of experience or the exact functional experience to still throw your name in the hat, still interview and still talk to that, leader about the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up some really great points there as well, too. Just being in that contact with your manager and really letting them know where you're at and where you want to grow is so important and so simple that I think a lot of people overlook. So thank you for sharing that advice there. And I do think that Sunrun does have excellent leadership that's, really pushing you to grow as well, too. So that's definitely something that we do well here, I think. So moving on to question 3 now. Thank you so much. How have you benefited from the skills and experience that you've gained through your career pivot or journey? And Emily, I think we'll go ahead and start with you this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I've held so many roles at Sunrun, so I'm happy to chat about this. My talent and HR background, I think, really helped me in my leadership roles. I didn't, need to rely so much on the HR business partner, and also just understanding people strategy, understanding management strategy. And then my roles that I held in corporate strategy and our project management office really helped me. You're prepping projects, decks for the exec level. You're doing business analysis and cases that helped me bring like a polished approach to operations and running a frontline leadership organization. So the frontline team was like, oh, like there's a business case behind it. There's, legit resources and this is thought through. And so, what I got from the frontline was a ton of skills I didn't have. But I was able to bring, those from my past with me. And then looking forward to this product management role, I don't have deep product management experience, but I do have experience with how a product goes out into the world, like how the teams actually use the product and how the customers interact with the product. So I'm looking forward to bringing that experience into the development of it.
I love that. It's always kind of interesting how you can see where previous skills may not be exactly what a certain role is looking for, but how you can kind of shape them into the skills that you need for another role as well too. So I appreciate you sharing your experience there. And then Lai, same question for you. How have you benefited from the skills and experiences you've gained in your career pivot?
Yeah, I think coming into Sunrun, like I took the skills and like my mentality of being really organized and very coordinated from, my finance background, right? Like I took that, and throughout my career in Sunrun, I applied that in everything that I've done, right? Like and I think we'll touch on this a little bit later on the call, but like the role that I held, when I came into Sunrun was the installation coordinator, and, and that role there taught me a lot, right? A lot of customer service, right? Because I was very customer facing. And in that role, we were the local branches, like installation coordinator, to make sure that jobs get on the calendar, make sure the install crews are working, making sure the customers are kept happy and informed, right? So I learned a lot from the customer's view aspect of it. And so I kind of took that on into the leadership roles that I've held, is where it's like, Sunrun, we're huge on customer experience, right? Like our customers are everything to us. And so we're very customer facing organization. And like, I actually take that as like the leadership team that I work with, myself and my team work with, we also think of them as not only colleagues, but customers as well, right? So whatever we bring to the table presentation, whatever strategy that we're working on, we not only do crowdsourcing, we make sure we communicate well, we keep them up to date on what's happening, right? Whether it's through calls or emails or like summaries. I'm big on project summaries with my team. And so I think taking what I learned into my leadership role is like, colleagues are colleagues. We work cohesively together with one another, but I also treat them as like our customers, right? So, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, having the full experience for everyone is very important, I think. So following that, we're going to have our fourth question that we have here today, and then I'm going to go ahead and take some time to ask some questions that we had from the audience. But Lai, I'll go ahead and pass this one to you. So how did you prepare yourself for a successful return to work after taking some time off? And what tips do you have for other women who are returning to work that maybe want to do the same?
Yeah, so as I mentioned previously, like a life-altering moment happened, and that life-altering moment was the passing of my father, right, which shifted my life in more ways than I can ever imagine. It reshaped my outlook on life, and what truly matters in this one life that we all have, right? So, and I kind of touched on this as well, as we're like, although I enjoyed my finance work, I felt unfulfilled, right? So when my father passed, I resigned from my finance position. I took a year off, and I traveled around Asia and Europe for the year by myself. During that time, I really got to know myself and the person I was becoming and who I wanted to be, right? I know it sounds really cliche, but it's really the truth. It's really the truth, right? Like it re-centralized my whole like outlook of my career path. So when I came back to the States, I knew I wanted to do something that was impactful and fulfilling. I just didn't know exactly what that would be. whether that was in a field that helped like local communities or for a corporation that impacts the well-being of humanity. And so I came back and I said, you know what, I'm gonna start looking for work, right? And I was okay. I wanted to start at a very entry level position, right, and get to know a different industry. I was okay with that. So I went online. I found I applied at Tesla, and I applied at Sunrun, and a bunch of other more local community based roles. And I went through the interviewing phase, and ultimately I got offered 3 different positions, and Sunrun I knew Sunrun was probably the place, not probably, but it was the place I wanted to be after doing some research. So I accepted the installation coordinator role for the East Bay branch. And here I am today. And that was back in 2016. It's been a very, very fun and knowledgeable and great learning experience for me in my career.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that personal part of your journey as well, too. I think that definitely takes a significant toll on someone. And the fact that you were able to take that time to really like recenter and figure out what you want to do, I think is so important. I know myself at times I felt rushed of, I have to know exactly what I want to be doing now, and I can't make a career change. But it's important to talk about, the steps where it takes to get there, and how you get to a point to where you can be comfortable with that career change and the amazing opportunities it can lead you to. So Thank you for sharing that with us, Lai. Now this question is, I'm going to pull a couple from the audience here. Lai or Emily, whichever one of you is comfortable with answering, feel free to come off mute. Are there, let me see, I saw a couple up here earlier. So how would either of you handle it if on your attempt to pivot was met with resistance or rejection for seemingly arbitrary reasons, for example, lack of experience?
Good question. Emily, do you want to take it, or you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have some ideas of how I would do it, and then Lai, you can go for it. I think I would understand who it's coming from. If it's coming from my manager, I would be like, I think I have a bigger problem. If it's coming from the hiring manager, maybe I don't want to work, with that person in the first place, or maybe they're valid, right? And what the role, I think I would try to distinguish, like, okay, so what they're looking for in the role and the needs of it, maybe they do need someone with really deep experience. And then if what my experience doesn't necessarily match, just ask the question, ask why, and can you give me some examples of experience that would match? And then try to connect your experience to those examples that they have provided. But ultimately, it just could be not the right role in the first place as well. And I think I may evaluate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Like, again, just ask questions, right? And I take it as, okay, if I'm not the right person to pivot into this role, right? Like, let me know what I can improve on, right? And then, right, you can then connect with other parts of the business who can help you kind of like learn and gain more knowledge. So then when another opportunity arises, because there will be other opportunities, right? You would be, you would be qualified and a good fit for it. So again, no question is a dumb question. Like, it's the way you're going to learn, and don't be shy. That's all. Don't be shy and don't be afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Emily and Lai, I think you bring up great points about simply just asking why, asking those questions. And I think, sometimes people are too afraid to, and it's not a dumb question. It's, how can you prepare for when that opportunity comes again, like you mentioned, Lai. So really great insight there, both of you. Thank you. We'll get back to some audience questions later, but for now, we'll go ahead and move on to our next question here, what are your favorite things or thing specifically about working at Sunrun? Lai, we'll go ahead and kick it off with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about Sunrun is like how we are able to evolve and pivot in the solo coaster industry as a business and as Sunrunners, right? Like, we come together as a whole and we work together throughout different parts of the business to make quick changes, which then continues to peg us as the industry leader. That is what I value the most. I mean, about Sunrun is how we're different parts of business. We're all able to put our heads together and work through it. And again, that's how we remain strong in the solar industry and remain the #1 residential solar company in the nation.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of great teamwork over here. Emily, for you, the same question?
Yeah, definitely agree with Lai on a number of those points she made. I love Sunrun's fast-paced environment and our ability to innovate quickly. You just kind of have to do that in this industry. I also like that that's the nature of the industry as well. And so, working together to quickly make change, to quickly roll something out and kind of see the fruits of your teamwork come to life is one of my favorite things. I also really think Sunrun does an amazing job at taking care of its employees. From the benefits to like the career development and the career opportunities. Like I have gotten so many opportunities at Sunrun and I'm forever grateful for that. And they make it a huge part of their culture. So I definitely recommend Sunrun as an employer.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up a lot of great points there as well. We definitely do move pretty quickly with what we do. But that's, again, part of our values. We love to run, and it seems that that's pretty well known company-wide, and a lot of great benefits and opportunities too. So thank you for sharing both of your takes on that. Moving on to our next question here. Looking back on your career, what would you say has been your most valuable career mistake, and how did you overcome that? Emily, we'll go ahead and start with you on this one.
Yeah. I not listening to my gut. And so one thing that you should always do is like listen to your gut. If you're in conflict with it, pause, talk about it, figure it out. I hired a manager because I was having a really hard time filling the role. And, it was a really challenging market. So it was actually a really important hire. And it was open for far too long. I was having a hard time. And so, I pushed approve on an offer for a candidate that my gut was like, you're going to regret this later. But, it was confusing because the resume was good. What he was telling, his interview was good. And it turned out that the employee was, a really poor performer, resulted in a lot of work attention, and then ultimately exiting the business. So always listen to your gut and don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves and just wait for the right person.
I love that. Listening to your gut is definitely something that's overlooked pretty often. And I think I've made that same mistake a couple times as well, too, in my career path. Lai, same question for you. Any valuable mistakes that you've learned from?
Yeah, kind of similar to Emily. For me, it was not taking an action on an employee who was not performing. And this was during the time of when I was the DO, Director of Electrification Operations for the Greater LA. The employee was not only not performing, but was difficult and pushed back at everything I tried to change in that market. And this particular employee was a leader, like a manager of that branch. Because I was new to this role, right, to this director role, and I was at some point, self-doubting myself because of that, right? Because I knew I was still getting acclimated to the market, the LA market. The employee, long story short, very difficult time, and then the employee ended up resigning. Not on the best terms, right? But the lesson learned from this is, again, to never self-doubt, because I did for a minute doubted myself, like, could I really do this, because of that. And always, like Emily touched on, listen to your gut. I should have pulled the trigger and performance managing quicker, right? But again, because I let that kind of like consume me as like, ooh, I don't know the market. They do, it's very different from market to market. So that led to not pulling the trigger a little quicker, but the employee ended up resigning, and but lesson learned from that moment though, as a leader.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like a lot of trusting your gut and really just, again, like you said, not having that self-doubt, which can be a little bit difficult to overcome sometimes if, you don't have that confidence going in. And I think that, if you are selected for this role, you should definitely not self-doubt, and you should, move forward with your gut. So I think those are a lot of mistakes that I've also learned from as well too. And I'm sure several in this audience can relate to. So thank you both for sharing. Now moving on, we'll go ahead and do another one of our questions. And then after that, we'll go ahead and take some from the audience. So right now, what is your best piece or pieces of advice for other women who are thinking about making a career pivot? And on this one, we'll go ahead and start with Lai.
Yeah, just do it, like Nike's model, just do it. It's as simple as that. Even if it terrifies you, right, due to the uncertainty or doubt, like use that energy as your motivation, right? What scares you in life, changing decisions like this often comes from like fear of the unknown, not necessarily fear that you can't do it. It's the unknown. That unknown is the best part of it. Like as you get to carve out that path for yourself, right? Like you just always remember that you are the CEO of your life, right? One of my favorite quotes is by Anthony Robbins. And he said, we can change our lives. We can do, have, and be exactly what we wish, right? And that is one of the quotes that because I read his book during the year off that I had, that is what really pivoted my outlook on everything. So just do it. Don't be scared.
Yeah, right. Easier said than done sometimes. But
it is for sure. It does take a lot of like inner, like you got to look deep into yourself, right? And but once you garner that within yourself, sky's the limit for you. Like don't take no for an answer. Ask a lot of questions. We said that a lot on this call, and just do it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the line that you had mentioned too, you are the CEO of your own life. Definitely have to start looking at it from that perspective, because really you're the only person who can make that kind of change for you. Now, Emily, same question to you. Any pieces of advice for anyone trying to make a career pivot?
Yeah, I think the only, constant in life is change. And when you make a career pivot, you're changing everything. And change can be like initial change can be really uncomfortable. So it's why I've shied away from changes before. And I kind of have to push myself out of that comfort zone and say, it'll be uncomfortable in the beginning, but once you do it, you'll look back and you'll be like, I have grown so much. And I have this whole new set of skills and experiences that I didn't have before. And I have never regretted making a change. Even if I have failed at that change, I have still been like, I got so many good lessons out of that, for both like personally in my life, but my career as well. So just don't be afraid to, just do it. But it's okay if you fail, because, you're just going to gain so much from that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. Something that I always think about too is kind of like what you mentioned, Emily, just being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that, if you're uncomfortable and a change like that, then maybe you're going in the right direction since you're pushing yourself. So I love that advice there, Emily. Now we're going to go ahead and take a couple of our audience questions here. So this is open to either of you. So anyone who wants to come off mute. Are there resources you can recommend to learn about communication skills for management, if any of you have experience with resources there?
One of the most valuable resources that I've used is a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And it's really just about how to trust one another and directly communicate with one another. And it goes into like a little bit of the psychology around communication. So yeah, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, look it up, look into it. That's like tremendously helped me in my career.
I love that one, Emily. We just read that recently on our team, and it's a very good resource. So I can also back you up on that too. Lai, did you have any suggestions?
I think for me, it's just I did a lot of reading. I think one of the books, it was I don't remember the name of it, and it's based on like the military, and their training. And one of my managers actually gave it to me a couple of years ago. I cannot remember the title, the name of the book. I'm sorry, but I mean, like books. Read a lot of books on managing, right? One of the books right now I'm reading is in regards to like because I also serve as a chief of staff for Install Ops. It's how to be the best chief of staff for your business, right? Like, and it's a really great book. It's I'm probably like halfway through it. Because this role is kind of like new for me as well, since I've taken on, it's only been a few months, so lots of learning for me to do. But it's as I go through it, it's one of the things where I find out like the way that I was working before as a manager may not work with what this new role is. But I think one of the things, and Emily hit on this, like even if you fail, like that's a way for you to know what you can pivot to and do better for yourself. So read a lot of books that's helps you as a manager and as a leader as you progress in your career. Highly suggest. And Anthony Robbins' books helps. I read a couple of his books, so highly suggest his in any of his books for good reading.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that suggestion. And also just, reading in general. There's not enough reading that you can do out there. There's always more knowledge that you can learn for this type of career change in general as well too. So thank you both for your answer there. We have another audience question here. So if you find yourself under a manager that isn't invested in your career journey, how would you go about handling that? I think that one's a tricky one too.
Yeah, that is. Gosh, I've been lucky enough to where I've never had, that type of manager, right? Like they were always very, very encouraging, right? Like I think to be one of the best things you can be as a leader is wanting your team to grow, right? You want them to grow within the company, excel. So my advice is, again, having that really true conversation with your manager, right? Like that's all I think communicate is the best form of knowing. So find out the why behind it, right? Like, have that open and honest conversation, even if you're scared to, right? And I don't know the details of that question behind it, but like, maybe that is not what your manager is intending, right? It could be that. So my suggestion is really to, open, honest conversation is key.
Yeah, I agree. I think communication is so important. I think if you feel like you're hitting a block with communication, if you're able to seeking mentors at your company, or seeking other leaders that you work with that know your working style and can kind of vouch for you and be there for you and support you. So it doesn't have to be directly your manager. It can be another leader in an adjacent function, or a mentor, I think was what I would do. And then, I think Lai made a really good point. Sometimes your manager could not be aware that they're, acting that way. But if ultimately it's like, you feel like you're really hitting a roadblock, I would be like, is this the right, leadership for me? And consider that.
Yeah, those are all excellent points. And that could, again, be a spark to some sort of a career pivot or at least position pivot. If, that management isn't what works best for you. But I think it's very important to have that communication, ask questions like both of you mentioned. So thank you both for touching on that. Now I think we have time for one or two more audience questions before we move on to our other sections. So for either of you, how do you deal with a negative coworker or a negative work environment in general?
Ooh, that's a good one. So for transparency's sake, like I had that happen, right? And it was in my role as an individual contributor, as an IC, as an installation coordinator. We had another person who was also an IC. She came into the role newer, right, into the role. There was 3 of us there, and just very, really kind of had the negativity and, like vibe in the space. So it was tough. It was tough to kind of work through, but what you don't want to do is, reciprocate that energy, right? Like you don't want to do that. So although it's a struggle for the environment as a team environment, right? You need to have that, again, open and honest conversation with them. And if they take it as, oh, I didn't know I was doing that, I'm sorry. Or if they're going to be very defensive and, say, well, there's a reason why behind it, right? Like, don't take that as a direct dig at you, right? Like just feel like, look, I did what I could. I had the conversation of what the energy is like within this team environment, and it's not helping. If it's causing you stress, then it's best to then, speak to your manager about it, right? And then, letting your manager know what the environment's like. And then that ultimately may have, end up with a conversation as a team with your manager and said person. But, you never want to reciprocate that type of energy back. And, again, having that open and honest conversation is key. And which is what I did, and it helped the situation, right? It really helped the situation, and everybody, agreed, and things got better. But, it was a struggle for a bit, right? Because I too was in the state where maybe, he or she was going through something outside of work that was causing that environment, right? You don't want to overstep your boundary because you are colleagues, but if it's affecting your day-to-day work, then you got to have that open and honest conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's kind of the only way to tackle it. You don't want to ignore them. You don't want to fight back with the same behavior. You just want to address in the moment, especially if they do something very specific. You have something specific to say, hey, I want to call out this behavior I didn't like. How I'm feeling, about it is you made me feel this way, or you made this person feel this way. And just have that direct. It's so uncomfortable for certain people. Like it's uncomfortable for me. And I've just gotten in the habit of doing it. And, 9 times out of 10, even if that person is combative in the moment of you calling them out, they have come back to me in a chat or a call or a text, kind of apologizing about it and explaining the why behind it, whether it's something they're going through or something else that was happening at work. And then, Lai's totally right. If it's really, a poor work environment, and it's not getting better, and you have tried to address it yourself, and you've tried to be professional, you should alert your manager and HR as well.
Yeah, definitely. Those are great perspectives to look at. Emily, I think that also has to do with the high performing teams and the 5 dysfunctions that you were talking about earlier, is just having that conflict. And even though sometimes it's uncomfortable, again, having that communication with your coworkers or colleagues, like it's something that you have to push through. And in the end, usually it'll work out for a better team environment. So I appreciate both of your perspectives on that. Now I'm going to go ahead and take one more question from the audience, and then we'll jump back into our questions. So this is for either of you, but how would you frame a work break in an interview or on your resume? Or how would you, want to have that presented to you if you're in a leadership position and you're hiring somebody who may have had a work break?
Yeah, I can take that since I took a year off. look, just, I mean, like nothing is better than the truth. Like when I started interviewing, I mean, obviously on my resume, you can see that year-long break, right? And often employers or the interviewers will ask like, oh, I see you have a year gap from this time to time. Like, what did you do during that time? Right. They do generally ask that question. And I was asked that question and I was like, I told them the truth. I said, I wanted to take that break to recollect myself on my thoughts mentally, right? Like to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, right? Like it was very personal, but it was also career driven as well, right? Like just be very open and honest about it. And I find out that they actually really appreciated that, right? Like, and that there's just no other way. It's just letting them know the reason behind it truthfully, and it works out in the end. I think they appreciate the truth.
Yeah, definitely. I can say from a recruiting perspective, which is the world I used to be in, I would love to just hear an honest answer, especially when it's something like that. So yeah, I appreciate your perspective there as well. I think honesty and kind of just talking about how you're growing in general as a person can really help during that interview spot or in your resume or LinkedIn, wherever you may have it listed. Awesome. So thank you for that. Now this is a quick one here too that either of you feel free to take. But how did you select the new field that you went into? Lai, I know you kind of talked about your decision making there, but if any of you have any perspective on this, it might help some of our audience members out.
Yeah, I think I touched on this a little bit. So I wanted to like own a business. And so that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to go into supply chain where I am the director. I'm not like the support analyst operator. So that was one motivation, and I learned so much by owning it myself. And then the other, interest of mine to go into revenue and product management is I've had experience in operations. So how, the downstream funnel works. And I was really interested in like, how does upstream funnel work? Like, how do we get customers to buy our products, and what do we price them at, and how do we design them? And so then that will round out my entire career. Also, it brings me a little bit back into that project management strategy world of working really cross-functionally on technical problems, which is what I was doing before. And I liked that. Right. So it's like, what did you like about previous roles? What did you not like? And then helping that weave your next career path.
I love that. Kind of just really sitting down and asking yourself, what do I want? What did I like? What did I not like? I think that's a great way to look at it. Lai, did you have any perspective on this?
Yeah. I mean, just, figuring out, what fulfills you. Like, I think a lot of us, sadly, we kind of just stay idle in comfort, I think. And and that's fine, right? That's human nature. I think, it's for me, it's like having a career where I feel fulfilled, where I feel like I'm making a difference, right? For the business and for the planet, right? That fulfills me, right? Like as I mentioned earlier, like I worked in finance, which while I enjoyed it because I went to school for that, it just wasn't, hitting really deeply home for me. And so, just finding a career where you're truly happy in, right? Like, and also, work is work, right? We're going to have our days where we're stressed out, where there's a lot going on. Let's be real, like it's not always peaches and cream, which is, I think, the best part of it, because through that, you actually learn a lot more as well about yourself, right? And about the business. But I think the key advice is just really just to find something that really, fulfills you and makes you happy, because that's what's going to drive you to wanting to wake up every morning, like every day. So.
Yeah, I was going to say personally, you really touched me there with that whole self-fulfillment. I've gone through that journey before myself where I really have to ask, like, is this something that's making me happy? Is this the work that I want to be doing? Even if, like you said, not everything is peaches and cream all the time. So yeah, very important. Both of you brought up great points of what to look for when you're looking for your next career pivot. So, moving on, Fairy Godboss has a tradition of asking its panelists the following. What they have observed is that women do not feel comfortable enough bragging or taking ownership enough of all of the amazing things that they achieve. So, if you could just share with us an accomplishment, personal or professional, that you're most proud of. Lai, we'll go ahead and start with you here.
Yeah, for me, from the professional aspect of it, it's being a woman of color, who came to the U.S. as an immigrant, and to be able to work hard and transcend into a leadership role and showcase my ability to lead a team and lead impactful initiatives for the business where we see very few women in, right? Let alone a woman of color. Sunrun, I mean, like, look, solar is a very male dominant industry, right? So, to carve out your piece in that, I think, is what really, I feel that I've accomplished, and again, and that also kind of pans back to my father's advice, right? My late father, like he worked labor, he worked really, really hard for his kids to have a better life coming to the US, immigrating here. And so I always had that always at the back of my mind through school. Like I was not a perfect child, right? We all had our moments as teenagers, but my father really instilled that in us. And whenever he would see us steer a little to the right, like, you got to come back to the straight line, road. And so he was really good at that, but he did it in a way where there was not a lot of pressure, right? So meaning he was always proud of what we accomplished, but he always, he never let us forget why he came to the United States and what it was for. So I still keep it in my heart today. And when I have my own children, it's something I'm going to instill in my kids. So.
Yeah, I love that perspective. Looking at it from a woman of color perspective is also absolutely, something to talk about as well too. So thank you for sharing your achievements there. Emily, same question for you. Well, I guess statement, but if you could share with us an accomplishment, personal or professional, that you're most proud of.
Yeah, I think, over the last 2.5 years, 3 years, one of my favorite professional accomplishments was leading a 200-person warehouse field team that was like 90% male. And, just having just not being afraid to walk into the warehouses and kind of take command and, let them know that leadership is here to really support them. Both organizationally, like I did a whole reorg and I hired more females, and I gave them, put them in charge of the warehouse, and just not being afraid based on who I am and the organization that I'm leading to just be myself, and also bring my best work ethic possible. So, there were times where I was really okay, let's go. You gotta, kind of hyping myself up to be in those moments. And I'm really proud that I did it and gained their trust and respect and had some great outcomes for both Sunrun and for the employees, stood up incentive programs for them, which they never had before. Enabled new programs like job site delivery to help their jobs be easier by not having so many installers in the building, and set up a scorecard that they never had before. So, I think that's definitely what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And thank you for sharing. I've worked in male dominated industries for years, and I can understand how challenging it can be sometimes to, be a female leader in a male dominated situation. But it sounds like you brought a lot of really great and impressive change to that situation. And even in creating more diversity and hiring women in that sense too. So thank you both for sharing your perspectives on that. And now I have a quick lightning round question. So this will be a quick answer right before we wrap up from the both of you. But what advice would you give your younger self? Emily, we'll go ahead and start it off with you.
Yeah, there's in my earlier in my career, so many times I was afraid to make the comment or ask a question in a room full of people. And don't be afraid to do that, because you're just as smart as all the other people in the room. And your question is probably what other people are wanting to hear, or your comment is probably really insightful. And that comment will catch the attention of other people that are like, oh, I want to hear from her more. And I just, I always am like second guessing myself, like, should I speak up? Should I not? So just speak up and be yourself. You are just as smart as everyone else in the room.
Absolutely. Keep asking those questions. Definitely what I've learned a bit from today. Lai, your answer.
To my younger self would be, don't stay idle for too long in comfort. Time is something we can't take back. Use it wisely and thoughtfully.
I love that answer as well too. Thank you both so much for your insights here today. I know we're getting pretty close to our wrap up, so thank you both again, and for sharing such fantastic advice along this journey too. I can't believe it went by so quickly. I just want to hear both of you talk on and on for even longer now. And thank you to everybody who tuned into today's discussion. Now, as a reminder, we will be sending out a recording of today's event along with resources to learn more about opportunities at Sunrun. So in the meantime, be sure to check out Sunrun's profile and the jobs on Fairy Godboss. Also, we'd love to hear your feedback to help us improve future events. Please head to the type form tab on the right side of your screen to share your thoughts in about a 1-minute survey. But as of right now, I think, let's see. Maybe we can ask one more question before we wrap up. We can add this to another lightning round. But what do you find most rewarding or challenging about your current work? And either of you, feel free to take that one. I think it's a great one to wrap up with.
For me, the rewarding would be to see the initiatives that we work so hard on, whether it's on a quarterly basis, monthly basis, come into fruition. Seeing it go live, and it's like, whoa, it took so many hands to make this work. That is the most rewarding for me. And also to see my team shine, right? Like uplifting my team and seeing them shine is very fulfilling for me.
Awesome.
I just started my new role, so stay posted. I'll report back. But I want to thank you, Jordy, for doing such a great job moderating here, and just such an honor to come and be a part of this. I'm very humbled. So thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you both so much for being here again. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.